Okay, pretty shiny peoples. So here's the thing. I went back and looked, and there's only 30 pages. Well, 31. There's 31 pages till we end this book. And if I have to miss next week, I don't want to do that. I don't want to miss a week and then close this book and start a new one. So I guess we're going to get a bonus episode today, and we are going to finish book 4. And then next time we will start book 5. So give me just one moment. I was a dumbass and did not refill my water. So give me just one moment and I will be right back. And we will finish book 4, Wizard and Glass. All right, now I'm back. Chapter 3, The Wizard. Roland stopped at the sentry box, glanced in, then picked up the thing which was lying on the floor. The others caught up with him and clustered around. It had looked like a newspaper, and that's just what it was, although an exceedingly odd one. No Topeka Capital Journal, this, and no news of population-leveling plague. The Oz Daily Buzz, volume MDLXV111, number 96. Daily Buzz, Daily Buzz. Handsome is as handsome does. Weather, here today, gone tomorrow. Lucky numbers, none. Prognosis, bad. Blah, 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 blah. Bad is good, all the stuff's blah, 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 blah. The same good as bad, bad is blah, 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 blah. Good, all the stuff's the same, blah, 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 blah. Go slow past the drawers, all blah, 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 blah. The stuff's the same, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blaine is a pain, all blah, yak, 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 yak. The stuff's the same, yak, 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 yak. Charutry, all the yak, 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 yak. Stuff's the same, blah, yak, blah, blah, blah. Good is bad, blah, blah, yak, blah, blah. Blah, yak, yak, baked, blah, 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 blame, blame, turkey cooked goose, all the blame, 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 stuff's the same, blah, 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 blah. Yak, yak, ride a train, die in a blah, blah, yak, yak, blah, plain, pain, all the stuff's the same, blah, 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 blah. Related story, page 6. Below this was a picture of Roland, Eddie, Susanna, and Jake crossing the mirrored courtyard, as if this had happened the day before instead of only minutes ago. Beneath it was a caption reading, Tragedy in Oz. Travelers arrive seeking fame and fortune, find death instead. I like that, Eddie said, adjusting Roland's revolver in the holster he wore low on his hip. Comfort and encouragement after days of confusion, like a hot drink on a cold fucking night. Don't be afraid of this, Roland said. This is a joke. I'm not afraid, Eddie said. But it's a little more than a joke. I lived with Henry Dean for a lot of years, and I know when there's a plot to psych me out afoot. I know it very well. He looked curiously at Roland. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you're the one who looks scared, Roland. I'm terrified, Roland said simply. The arched entryway made Susanna think of a song which had been popular 10 years or so before she had been yanked out of her world and into Roland's. Saw an eyeball peeping through a smoky cloud behind the green door, the lyric went. When I said Joe sent me, someone laughed out behind the green door. There were actually 2 doors here instead of 1, and no peephole through which an eyeball could look in either. Nor did Susanna try that old speakeasy deal about how Joe had sent her. She did, however, bend forward to read the sign hanging from one of the circular glass door pulls. Bell, out of order. Please knock, it said. Don't bother, she said to Roland, who had actually doubled up his fist to do as the sign said. It's from the story, that's all. Eddie pulled her chair back slightly, stepped in front of it, and took hold of the circular pulls. The doors opened easily, the hinges rolling in silence. He took a step forward into what looked like a shadowy green grotto, cupped his hands to his mouth, and called, "Hey!" The sound of his voice rolled away and came back changed, small, echoing, lost, dying, it seemed. "Christ," Eddie said, "do we have to do this?" "If we want to get back to the beam, I think so." Roland looked paler than ever, but he led them in. Jake helped Eddie lift Susanna's chair over the sill. A milky block of jade-colored glass, and inside, Oi's little shoes flashed dim red on the green glass floor. They had gone only 10 paces when the doors slammed shut behind them with no question about it. With a no question about it boom that rolled past them and went echoing away into the depths of the green palace. There was no reception room, only a vaulted, cavernous hall that seemed to go on forever. The walls were lit with a faint green glow. This is just like the hallway in the movie, Jake thought, the one where the cowardly lion got so scared when he stepped on his own tail. And adding a little touch of verisimilitude, Jake could have done without. Eddie spoke up in a trembly and better than passable Bert Lair imitation. "Wait a minute, fellas. I was just thinking. I really don't want to see the wizard this much. I better wait for you outside." "Stop it," Jake said sharply. "Up it," Oi agreed. He walked directly at Jake's heel, swinging his head watchfully from side to side as he went. Jake could hear no sound except for their own passage, yet he sensed something, a sound that wasn't. It was, he thought, like looking at a wind chime that wants only the slightest puff of breeze to set it tinkling. "Sorry," Eddie said. "Really." He pointed. "Look down there." About 40 yards ahead of them, the green corridor did end in a narrow green doorway of amazing height, perhaps 30 feet from the floor to its pointed tip, and from behind it, Jake could now hear a steady thrumming sound. As they drew closer and the sound grew louder, his dread grew. He had to make a conscious effort to take the last dozen steps to the door. He knew this sound. He knew it from the run he'd made with Gasher under Ludd, and from the run he and his friends had made on Blame the Mono. It was the steady beat, beat, beat of slow trans engines. "It's like a nightmare," he said at a small, close-to-tears voice. "We're right back where we started." "No, Jake," the gunslinger said, touching his hair. "Never think it. What you feel is an illusion. Stand and be true." The sign on this door wasn't from the movie, and only Susanna knew it was from Dante. "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here," it said. Roland reached out and with his 2-fingered right hand and pulled the 30-foot door open. What lay beyond it was, to the eyes of Jake, Susanna, and Eddie, a weird combination of the Wizard of Oz and Blame the Mono. A thick rug, pale blue like the one in the Barony coach, lay on the floor. The chamber was like the nave of a cathedral, soaring to impenetrable heights of greenish black. The pillars, which supported the glowing walls, were great glass ribs of alternating green-pink light. The pink was the exact shade of Blaine's hull. Jake saw these supporting pillars had been carved with a billion different images, none of them comforting. They jostled the eye and unsettled the heart. There seemed to be a preponderance of screaming faces. Ahead of them, dwarfing the visitors, turning them into creatures that seemed no bigger than ants, was the chamber's only furnishing, an enormous green glass throne. Jake tried to estimate its size and was unable. He had no reference points to help him. He thought that the throne's back might be 50 feet high, but it could as easily have been 75 or 100. It was marked with the open eye symbol, this time traced in red instead of yellow. The rhythmic thrusting of the light made the eye seem alive, to be beating like a heart. Above the throne, rising like the pipes of a mighty medieval organ, was 13 great cylinders, each pulsing a different color. Each that was, save for the pipe which ran directly down in the back of the throne's center. That one was black as midnight, and as still as death. "Hey!" Susanna shouted from her chair. "Anyone here?" At the sound of her voice, the pipes flashed so brilliantly that Jake had to shield his eyes. For a moment, the entire throne room glared like an exploding rainbow. Then the pipes went out, went dark, went dead, just as the wizard's glass in Roland's story had done when the glass, or the force inhabiting the glass, decided to shut up for a while. Now there was only the column of blackness and the steady green pulse of the empty throne. Next, a somehow tired humming sound, as of a very old servo mechanism being called into use one final time, began to whine its way into their ears. Panels, each at least 6 foot long and 2 feet wide, slid open in the arms of the throne. From the black slots thus revealed, a rose-colored smoke began to drift out and up. As it rose, it darkened to a bright red, and in it a terribly familiar zigzag line appeared. Jake knew what it was even before the words. Lud, Kendleton, Relia, the Falls of the Hounds, Dasherville, Topeka. Appeared, glowing smoke, bright. It was Blaine's route map. Roland could say all he wanted about how things had changed, how Jake's feelings of being trapped in a nightmare, this is the worst nightmare of my life, and that is the truth, was just an illusion created by his confused mind and frightened heart, but Jake knew better. This place might look a little bit like the throne room of Oz and the Great and Terrible, but it was really Blaine the Mono. They were back aboard Blaine, and soon the riddling would begin all over again. Jake felt like screaming. Eddie recognized the voice that boomed out of the smoky route map hanging above the green throne, but he believed it was Blaine the Mono no more than he believed it was the Wizard of Oz. Some wizard, perhaps, but this wasn't the Emerald City, and Blaine was just as dead as dog shit. Eddie had sent him home with a fucking rupture. Hello there again, little trail hands. The smoky route map pulsed, but Eddie no longer associated it with the voice, although he guessed they were supposed to. No, the voice was coming from the pipes. He glanced down, saw Jake's paper-white face, and knelt beside him. "It's crap, kid," he said. No, it's Blaine. Not dead. He's dead, all right. This is nothing but an amplified version of the after-school announcements. Who's got detention and who's supposed to report to room 6 for speech therapy, you dig? What? Jake looked up at him, lips wet and trembling, eyes dazed. What are you? Those pipes are speakers. Even a pipsqueak can sound big through a 12-speaker Dolby sound system. Don't you remember the movie? It has to sound big because it's a bum hug. Jake, just a bum hug. What are you telling him, Eddie of New York? One of your stupid, nasty-minded little jokes? One of your unfair riddles? Yeah, Eddie said. The one that goes, how many dipolar computers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Who are you, buddy? I know goddamn well you're not Blaine the Mono, so who are you? I am Oz, the voice thundered. The glass columns flashed. So did the pipes behind the throne. Oz the Great. Oz the Powerful. Who are you? Susanna rolled forward until her wheelchair was at the base of the dull green steps leading up to a throne that would have dwarfed even Lord Perth. I am Susanna Dean, the small and crippled, she said, and I was raised to be polite but not to suffer bullshit. We're here because we're supposed to be here. Why else did we get left the shoes? What do you want of me, Susanna? What would you have, little cowgirl? You know, she said. We want what everyone wants, so far as I know, to go back home again, 'cause there's no place like home. You can't go home, Jake said. He spoke in a rapid, frightened murmur. You can't go home again. Thomas Wolfe said that, and that is the truth. It's a lie, Shug, Susanna said, a flat-out lie. You can go home again. All you have to do is find the right rainbow and walk under it. We found it. The rest is just, footwork. Would you go back to New York, Susanna Dean? Eddie Dean? Jake Chambers, is that what you ask of Oz the mighty and powerful? New York isn't home for us anymore, Susanna said. She looked very small, yet very fearless as she sat in her new wheelchair at the foot of the enormous pulsing throne. No more than Gilead is home for Roland. Take us back to the path of the beam. That's where we want to go, because that's our way home. Only home we got. Go away, cried the voice from the pipes. Go away and come back tomorrow. We'll discuss the beam then, Fiddle-dee-dee, said Scarlet. We'll talk about the beam tomorrow, for tomorrow is another day. No, Eddie said. We'll talk about it now. Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz, the voice cried, and the pipes flashed furiously with each word. Susanna was sure that this was supposed to be scary, but she found it almost amusing instead. It was like watching a salesman demonstrate a child's toy. Hey kids, when you talk, the pipes flash bright colors. Try it and see. Sugar, you best listen now, Susanna said. What you don't want to do is arouse the wrath of folks with guns, especially when you be living in a glass house. I said, come back tomorrow. Red smoke once more began to boil out of the slots in the arms of the throne. It was thicker now. The shape which had been Blaine's route map melted apart and joined it. The smoke formed a face this time. It was narrow and hard and watchful, framed by long hair. It's the man Roland shot in the desert, Susan thought wonderingly. It's that man, Jonas. Jonas, I know it is. Now Oz spoke in a slightly trembling voice. Do you presume to threaten the great Oz? The lips of the huge smoky face hovering over the throne seat parted in a snarl of mingled menace and contempt. You ungrateful creatures! Oh, you ungrateful creatures! Eddie, who knew smoke and mirrors when he saw them, had glanced in another direction. His eyes widened and he gripped Susanna's arm above the elbow. Look, he whispered. Christ, Sus, look at Oi. The Billy Bumbler had no interest in the smoke ghost, whether they were monorail route maps, dead coffin hunters, or just Hollywood special effects of the pre-World War II variety. He had seen, or smelled, something that was more interesting. Susanna grabbed Jake, turned him, and pointed at the Bumbler. She saw the boy's eyes widen with understanding a moment before. Oi reached the small alcove in the left wall. It was screened from the main chamber by a green curtain which matched the glass walls. Oi stretched his long neck forward, caught the curtain's fabric in his teeth, and yanked it back. Behind the curtain, red and green lights flashed, cylinders spun inside glass boxes. Needles moved back and forth inside long rows of lighted dials, yet Jake barely noticed these things. It was the man who took all the attention, the one sitting at the console, his back to them, his filthy hair streaked with dirt and blood hung to his shoulders in matted clumps. He was wearing some sort of headset and was speaking into a tiny mic which hung in front of his mouth. His back was to them, and at first he had no idea that Oi had smelled him out and uncovered his hiding place. Go! Thundered the voice from the pipes, except now Jake saw that it really was where it was really coming from. Come back tomorrow, if you like, but go now, I warn you. It is Jonas. Roland must not have killed him after all, Eddie whispered, but Jake knew better. He had recognized the voice. Even distorted by the amplifications of the colored pipes, he had recognized the voice. How could he have ever believed it would be the voice of Blaine? I warn you, if you refuse... Oi barked a sharp bark and somehow forbidding sound. The man in the equipment alcove began to turn. Tell me, Cully, Jake remembered this voice saying before its owner had discovered the dubious attractions of amplification. Tell me all you know about dipolar computers and transitive circuits. Tell me, and I'll give you a drink. It wasn't Jonas, and it wasn't the Wizard of Anything. It was David Quick's grandson. It was the TikTok man. Jake stared at him, horrified. The coiled, dangerous creature who had lived beneath Ludd with his mates, Gasher and Hoots and Brandon and Tilly, was gone. This might have been the monster's ruined father, or grandfather. His left and mishappen, partly in its socket and partly on his unshaven cheek. The right side of his head looked half-scalped, the skull showing through in a long triangular strip. Jake had a distant, panic-darkened memory of a flap of skin falling over the side of the TikTok's face, but he had been on the edge of hysteria by that point, and was again now. Oi had also recognized the man who had tried to kill him and was barking hysterically, head down, teeth barred, back bowed. TikTok stared at him with wide, stunned eyes. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, said a voice from the pipe behind them, and then tittered, My friend Andrew is having another in a long series of bad days. Poor boy. I suppose I was wrong to bring him out of Lud, but he just looked so lost. The owner of the voice tittered again. Jake swung around and saw that there was now a man sitting in the middle of the great throne, with his legs casually crossed in front of him. He was wearing jeans, a dark jacket that belted at the waist, and old, run-down cowboy boots. On his jacket was a button that showed a pig's head with a bullet hole between the eyes. In his lap, this newcomer held a drawstring bag. He rose, standing in the seat of the throne like a child in Daddy's chair, and a smile dropped away from his face like loose skin. Now his eyes blazed and his lips parted over vast, hungry teeth. Get them, Andrew! Get them! Kill them! Every sister fucking one of them! My life for you, the man in the alcove screamed, and for the first time Jake saw the machine gun propped in the corner. Tick-Tock sprang for it and snatched it up. My life for you! He turned and Oi was on him once again, leaping forward and upward, sinking his teeth deep into Tick-Tock man's left thigh just below the crotch. Eddie and Susanna drew in unison, each raising one of Roland's big guns. They fired in concert, not even the smallest overlap in the sound of their shots. One of them tore off the top of Tick-Tock's miserable head, buried itself in the equipment, and created a loud but merciful brief snarl of feedback. The other took him in the throat. He staggered forward one step, then two. Oi dropped to the floor and backed away from him, snarling. A third step took Tick-Tock out into the throne room proper. He raised his arms toward Jake, and the boy could read Tick-Tock's hatred in its remaining green eye, and the boy thought he could hear the man's last hateful thought. Oh, you fucking little squint. Then Tick-Tock collapsed forward as he collapsed in the cradle of the Greys, only this time he would rise no more. Thus fell Lord Perth, and the earth did shake with that thunder, said the man on the throne. Except he's not a man, Jake thought, not a man at all. We found the wizard at last, I think, and I'm pretty sure I know what's in the bag he has. Martin, Roland said. He held out his left hand, and one which was still whole. Martin Broadcloak, after all these years, after all these centuries. Want this, Roland? Eddie put the gun he used to kill the Tick-Tock man in Roland's hand. A tendril of blue smoke was still rising from the barrel. Roland looked at the old revolver as if he had never seen it before, then slowly lifted it and pointed it at the grinning, rosy-cheeked figure sitting cross-legged on the green palace's throne. Finally, Roland breathed, thumbing back the trigger. Finally in my sights. That six-shooter will do you no good, as I think you know, the man on the throne said. Not against me. Only misfires against me, Roland, old fellow. How's the family, by the way? I seem to have lost touch with them over the years. I was always such a lousy correspondent. Someone ought to take a hosswhip to me, so they should. He threw back his head and laughed. Roland pulled the trigger of the gun in his hand. When the hammer fell, there was only a dull click. Told yer, the man on the throne said. I think you must have gotten some of those wet slugs in there by accident, don't you? The ones with the flat powder? Good for blocking the sound of the thinny, but not so good for shooting old wizards, are they? Too bad. And your hand, Roland. Look at your hand. Short a couple of fingers by the look. My, this has been hard on you, hasn't it? Things could get easier, though. You and your friends could have a fine, fruitful life. And as Jake would say, that is the truth. No more lobstrosities, no more mad trains, no more disquieting, not to mention dangerous, trips to other worlds. All you have to do is give over this stupid and hopeless quest for the tower. No, Eddie said. No, Susanna said. No, Jake said. No, Oi said, and added a bark. The dark man on the green throne continued to smile, unperturbed. Roland? He asked. What about you? Slowly he raised the drawstring bag. It looked dusty and old. It hung from the wizard's fist like a teardrop, and now the thing in its pouch began to pulse with pink light. Cry off, and they need never see what's inside this. They need never see the last scene of that sad long-ago play. Cry off, turn from the tower, and go your way." "No," Roland said. He began to smile, and his smile broadened. That of the man sitting on the throne began to falter. "You can enchant my guns, those of this world, I reckon," he said. "Roland, I don't know what you're thinking of, laddie, but I warn you not to cross Oz the Great, Oz the Powerful." "But I think I will, Martin. Or Merlin, or whatever you call yourself now." "Flag, actually," the man on the throne said, "and we've met before." He smiled. Instead of broadening his face as smiles usually did, it contracted Flag's features into a narrow and spiteful grimace. "In the wreck of Gilead, you and your surviving pals, that laughing donkey Cuthbert Allgood made one of your party. I remember. And De Curry, and the fellow with the birthmark made another. Were you on your way west to seek the tower? Or in the parlance of Jake's world, you were off to see the wizard? I know you saw me, but I doubt you knew until now that I saw you as well." "And will again, I reckon," Roland said. "Unless, that is, I kill you now and put an end to your interference." Still holding his gun out in his left hand, he went for the one tucked in the waistband of his jeans. Jake's Ruger, a gun from another world, and perhaps immune to this creature's enchantments. With his right. And he was fast as he had always been. Fast, his speed blinding. The man on the throne shrieked and cringed back. The bag fell from his lap, and the glass ball, once held by Rhea, once held by Jonas, once held by Roland himself, slipped out of its mouth. Smoke, green this time instead of red, billowed from the slots in the arms of the throne. It rose in obscuring fumes, yet Roland still might have shot the figure disappearing into the smoke if he had made a clean draw. He didn't, however. The Ruger slid into the grip of his reduced hand, then twisted. The front sight caught on his belt buckle. It took only an extra quarter of a second for him to free the snag, but that was the quarter of a second he needed. He pumped 3 shots into the billowing smoke, then ran forward, oblivious to the shouts of the others. He waved the smoke aside with his hands. His shots had shattered the back of the throne into thick, green slabs of glass, but the man-shaped creature which had called itself Flag was gone. Roland found himself already beginning to wonder if he, or it, had been there in the first place. The ball was still there, however, unharmed and glowing, the same enticing pink he remembered from so long ago, from Mayhees, when he had been young and in love. The survivor of Merlin's rainbow had rolled almost to the edge of the throne's seat. 2 more inches, and it would have plunged over and shattered on the floor. Yet it had not. It remained this bewitched thing Susan Delgado had first glimpsed through the window of Rhea's hut under the light of the kissing moon. Roland picked it up. How well it fit his hand, how natural it felt against his palm, even after all these years, and looked into its cloudy, troubled depths. "You always did have a charmed life," he whispered into it. He thought of Rhea as he had seen her in this ball, her ancient laughing eyes, her thought of the flames from the Reap Night bonfire rising around Susan, making her beauty shimmer in the heat, making it shiver like a mirage. Wretched Glam, he thought, if I dashed you to the floor, surely we would drown in the sea of tears that would pour out of your split belly, the tears of all those who you've put to ruin. And why not do it? Left whole, this nasty thing might be able to help them back to the path of the beam, but Roland didn't believe they actually needed it. He thought that the tick-tock and the creature which had called itself Flag had been their last challenge in that regard. The Green Palace was their door back to Midworld, and it was theirs now. They had conquered it by force of arms. But you can't go yet, Gunslinger. Not until you've finished your story, told the last scene. Whose voice was that? Vinay's? No. Court's? No. Nor was it the voice of his father, who had once turned him naked out of a whore's bed. That was the hardest voice, the one he often heard in his troubled dreams, the one he wanted so to please and so seldom could. No, not that voice. Not this time. This time what he heard was the voice of Kaa. Kaa like a wind. He had told so much of that awful 14th year, but he hadn't finished the tale. As with Detta Walker and the Blue Lady's 4 special plate, there was one more thing. A hidden thing. The question wasn't, he saw whether or not the 5 of them could find their way out of the Green Palace and recover the path of the beam. The question was whether or not they could go on as a quartet, if they were to do that. There could be nothing hidden. He would have to tell them of the final time he looked into the wizard's glass in that long-ago year. 3 nights past the welcoming banquet it had been. He would have to tell them. "No, Roland," the voice whispered. "Not just tell. Not this time. You know better." Yes, he knew better. "Come," he said, turning to them. They drew slowly around him, their eyes wide and filling with the ball's flashing pink light. Already they were half hypnotized by it, even Oy. "We are Katet," Roland said, holding the ball toward them. "We are one from many. I lost my one true love at the beginning of my quest for the Dark Tower. Now look into this wretched thing, if you would, and see what I lost not long after. See it once and for all, and see it very well." They looked. The ball cupped in Roland's upraised hands began to pulse faster. He gathered them in and swept them away. Caught and whirled in the grip of that pink storm, they flew over the wizard's rainbow to the Gilead that had been. Jake of New York stands in an upper corridor of the great hall of Gilead, more castle here in the Greenland than Mayor's house. He looks around and sees Susanna and Eddie standing by a tapestry, their eyes big, their hands tightly entwined, and Susanna is standing. She has her legs back, at least for now, and what she called cappies have been replaced by a pair of ruby-red slippers exactly like those Dorothy wore when she stepped out upon the version of the Great Road to find her version of the Great Road to find the Wizard of Oz, that bum hug. She has her legs because this is a dream, Jake thinks, but knows it is no dream. He looks down and sees Oy looking up at him with his anxious, intelligent, gold-ringed eyes. He is still wearing the red booties. Jake bends and strokes Oy's head. The feel of the bumbler's fur under his hand is clear and real. No, this isn't a dream. Yeah, Roland is not here, he realizes. They are 4 instead of 5. He realizes something else as well. The air of this corridor is faintly pink, and small pink halos revolve around the funny, old-fashioned light bulbs that illuminate the corridor. Something is going to happen. Some story is going to play out in front of our eyes, and now, as if the very thought that had summoned them, the boy hears the click of approaching footfalls. It's a story I know, Jake thinks. One I've been told before. As Roland comes around the corner, he realizes what story it is. The one where Martin Broadcloak stops Roland as Roland passes by on his way to the rooftop. Where it will perhaps be cooler. "You, boy," Martin will say, "come in. Don't stand in the hall. Your mother wants to speak to you." But of course that isn't the truth. Was never the truth. Will never be the truth, no matter how much time slips and bends. What Martin wants is for the boy to see his mother, and to understand that Gabrielle Duchesne has become the mistress of his father's wizard. Martin wants to goad the boy into an early test of manhood while his father is away and can't put a stop to it. He wants to get the puppy out of his way before it can grow teeth long enough to bite. Now they will see all this. The sad comedy will go its sad and preordained course in front of their eyes. I'm too young, Jake thinks, but of course he is not too young. Roland will be only 3 years older when he comes to Mayhees with his friends and meets Susan upon the Great Road. Only 3 years older when he loves her. Only 3 years older when he loses her. I don't care. I don't want to see it. And won't, he realizes as Roland draws closer. All that has already happened. For this is not August. This is the time of full earth, but late fall or early winter. He can tell by the serape Roland wears, a souvenir of his trip to the outer arc, and by the vapor that smokes from his mouth and nose each time he exhales. No central heating in Gilead, and it's cold up here. There are other changes as well. Roland is now wearing the guns, which are his birthright, the big ones with the sandalwood grips. His father passed him on at the banquet, Jake thinks. He doesn't know how he knows this, but he does, and Roland's face, although still that of a boy, is not the open, untried face of the one who idled up this same corridor 5 months before. The boy who was ensnared by Martin has been through much since then, and his battle with Court has been the very least of it. Jake sees something else, too. The boy gunslinger is wearing the red cowboy boots. He doesn't know it, though, because this isn't really happening. Yet somehow it is. They are inside the wizard's glass. They are inside the pink storm. Those pink halos revolving around the light fixtures remind Jake of the falls of the hounds and the moon bows revolving in the mist. This is happening all over again. "Roland," Eddie calls from where he and Susanna stand by the tapestry. Susanna gasps and squeezes his shoulder, wanting him to be silent, but Eddie ignores her. No, Roland, don't. Bad idea." "No, Olin," Oi yaps. Roland ignores both of them, and he passes by Jake a hand's breadth away without seeing him. For Roland, they are not here. Red boots or no red boots, this quartet is far in his future. He stops at a door near the end of the corridor, hesitates, then raises his fist and knocks. Eddie starts down the corridor toward him, still holding Susanna's hand. Now he looks almost as if he is dragging her. "Come on, Jake," says Eddie. "No, I don't want to." "It's not about what you want, and you know it. We're supposed to see it. If we can't stop him, we can at least do what we came here to do. Now come on." Heart heavy with dread, his stomach clenched in a knot, Jake comes along. As they approach Roland, the guns look enormous on his slim hips, and his unlined but already tired face somehow makes Jake feel like weeping. The gunslinger knocks again. "She ain't there, sugar," Susanna shouts at him. "She ain't there, or she ain't answering the door. And which one it is doesn't matter to you. Leave it. Leave her. She ain't worth it. Just being your mother don't make her worth it. Go away." But he doesn't hear her, either, and he doesn't go away. As Jake, Eddie, Susanna, and Oi gather unseen behind him, Roland tries the door to his mother's room and finds it unlocked. He opens it, revealing a shadowy chamber decorated with silk hangings. On the floor is a rug that looks like the Persian's beloved of Jake's mother. Only this rug, Jake knows, comes from the province of Kashmir. On the far side of the parlor, by a window which has been shuttered against the winter winds, Jake sees a low-backed chair and knows it's the one she was in on the day of Roland's manhood test. It is where she was sitting when her son observed the love bite on her neck. The chair is empty now, but as the gunslinger takes another step into the room and turns to look toward the apartment's bedroom, Jake observes a pair of shoes, black, not red, beneath the drapes flanking the shuttered window. "Roland," he shouts. "Roland, behind the drapes! Someone behind the drapes! Look out!" But Roland doesn't hear. "Mother?" he calls, and even his voice is the same. Jake would know it anywhere, but it is such a magically freshened version of it, young and uncracked by all the years of dust and wind and cigarette smoke. "Mother, it's Roland. I want to talk to you." Still no answer. He walks down the short hall which leads to the bedroom. Part of Jake wants to stay here in the parlor, to go to that drape and yank it aside, but he knows this isn't the way it's supposed to go. Even if he tried, he doubts it would do any good. His hand would likely pass right through like the hand of a ghost. "Come on," Eddie says. "Stay with him." They go in a cluster that might have been comic under other circumstances, not under these. Here it is a case of 3 people desperate for the comfort of friends. Roland stands looking at the bed against the room's left wall. He looks at it as if hypnotized. Perhaps he is trying to imagine Martin in it with his mother. Perhaps he is remembering Susan, with whom he never slept in a proper bed, let alone a canopied luxury such as this. Jake can see the gunslinger's dim profile in a 3-paneled mirror across the room in an alcove. This triple glass stands in front of a small table with the boy recognizes from his mother's side of his parents' bedroom. It is a vanity. The gunslinger shakes himself and comes back from whatever thoughts have seized his mind. On his feet are those terrible boots. In this dim light, they look like the boots of a man who has walked through a creek of blood. "Mother!" He takes a step toward the bed and actually bends a little, as if he thinks she might be hiding under it. If she's been hiding, however, it wasn't there. The shoes which Jake saw beneath the drape were women's shoes, and the drape which now stands at the end of the short corridor just outside the bedroom door is wearing a dress. Jake can see its hem. And he sees more than that. Jake understands Roland's troubled relationship with his mother and father better than Eddie or Susanna ever could, because Jake's own parents are peculiarly like them. Elmer Chambers is a gunslinger for the network, and Megan Chambers has a long history of sleeping with sick friends. This is nothing Jake has been told, but he knows, somehow. He has shared Kef with his mother and father, and he knows what he knows. He knows something about Roland as well, that he saw his mother in the wizard's glass. It was Gabrielle Duchesne, fresh back from her retreat in Debaria. Gabrielle, who would confess to her husband the error of her ways and her thinking after the banquet, who would cry his pardon and beg to be taken back to his bed, and, when Stephen drowsed after their love-making, she would bury the knife in his breast, or perhaps only lightly scratch his arm with it, not even waking him. With that knife, it would come to the same either way. Roland had seen it all in the glass before finally turning the wretched thing over to his father, and Roland had put a stop to it, to save Stephen Duchesne's life. Eddie and Susanna would have said, had they seen so far into the business. But Jake has the unhappy wisdom of unhappy children and sees further. To save his mother's life as well. To give her one last chance to recover her sanity, one last chance to stand at her husband's side and be true, one last chance to repent of Martin Broadcloak. Surely she will, surely she must. Roland saw her face that day, how unhappy she was, and surely she must. Surely she cannot have chosen the magician, if he can only make her see. So unaware that she has once more lapsed into the unwisdom of the very young, Roland cannot grasp the unhappiness and shame are often no match for desire. He has come here to speak to his mother, to beg her to come back to her husband before it's too late. He has saved her from herself once. He will tell her, but he cannot do it again. And if she still won't go, Jake thinks, or tries to brave it out, pretends she doesn't know what he's talking about, he'll give her a choice. Leave Gilead with his help, now, tonight, or be clapped in chains tomorrow morning, a traitor so outrageous she will almost certainly be hung as Hax the Hook was hung. "Mother," he calls, still unaware of the shape standing in the shadows behind him. He takes one further step into the room, and now the shape moves. The shape raises its hands. There is something in its hands, not a gun. Jake can tell that much, but it has a deadly look to it. A snaky look, somehow. "Roland, watch out!" Susanna shrieks, and her voice is a little like a magical switch. There is something on the dressing table, the glass, of course. Gabrielle has stolen it. It's what she'll bring to her lover as a consolation prize for the murder her son prevented. And now it lights as if in response to Susanna's voice. It sprays brilliant pink light up the triple mirror and casts its glow back into the room. In that light, in the triple glass, Roland finally sees the figure behind him. "Christ!" Eddie Dean shrieks, horrified. "Oh, Christ, Roland, that's not your mother, it's not even a woman. Not really, not any more. It is a kind of living corpse in a rode filthy black dress. There are only a few straggling tufts of hair left on her head, and there's a gaping hole where her nose used to be, but her eyes still blaze, and the snake she holds wriggling between her hands is very lively. Even in his own horror, Jake has time to wonder if she got it from under the same rock where she found the one Roland killed. It is Rhea who has been waiting for the gunslinger in his mother's apartment. It is the Coos, come not just to retrieve her clam, but to finish with the boy who has caused her so much trouble. "Now, ye trollops, get!" she cries shrilly, cackling. "Now you'll pay." But Roland has seen her in the glass. He has seen her. Rhea betrayed by the very ball she came to take back, and now he is whirling, his hands dropping to his new guns with all their deadly speed. He is 14. His reflexes are the sharpest and quickest they'll ever be, and he goes off like exploding gunpowder. "No, Roland, don't!" Susanna screams. "It's a trick! It's a glam!" Jake has just time to look away from the mirror to the woman actually standing in the doorway, has just time to realize he, too, has been tricked. Perhaps Roland also understands the truth at the last split second, that the woman in the doorway really is his mother after all, that the thing in her hands isn't a snake, but a belt, something she has made for him, a peace offering, mayhap, that the glass has lied to him in the only way it can, by reflection. In any case, it's too late. The guns are out and thundering, and their bright yellow flashes are lighting the room. He pulls the trigger of each gun twice before he can stop, and the 4 slugs drive Gabriella Duchesne back into the corridor. With the hopeful, "Can we make peace?" smile still on her face. She dies that way, smiling. Roland stands where he is, the smoking guns in his hands, his face cramped in a grimace of surprise and horror, just beginning to get the truth of what he must carry with him for the rest of his life. He has used the guns of his father to kill his mother. Now cackling laughter fills the room. Roland does not turn. He is frozen by the woman in the blue dress and black shoes who lies bleeding in the corridor of her apartment. The woman he came to save and is killed instead. She lies with the hand-woven belt draped across her bleeding stomach. Jake turns for him and is not surprised to see a green-faced woman in a pointed black hat swimming inside the ball. It is the Wicked Witch of the East. It is also, he knows, Rhea of the Coos. She stares at the boy with the guns in his hands and bares her teeth at him in the most terrible grin Jake has ever seen in his life. "I've burned the stupid girl ye loved, I burned her alive, I did, and now I've made ye a matricide. Do ye repent of killing my snake yet, gunslinger, my poor sweet Hermod? Do ye regret playing your hard games with one more trig than you'll ever be in your miserable life?" He gives no sign that he hears, only stares at his lady mother. Soon he will go to her, kneel by her, but not yet. Not yet. The face in the ball now turns toward the 3 pilgrims. As it does, it changes, becomes old and bald and rattled, becomes, in fact, the face Roland saw in the lying mirror. The gunslinger has been able to see his future friends, but Rhea sees them. Aye, she sees them very well. "Cry it off," she croaks. It's the caw of a raven sitting on a leafless branch beneath a winter-dim sky. "Cry it off. Renounce the tower." "Never, you bitch," Eddie says. "You see what he is, what a monster he is, and this is only the beginning of it, ye ken. Ask him what happened to Cuthbert, to Elaine. Elaine's touch, clear as it was, saved him not in the end, so it didn't. Ask him what happened to Jamie de Curry. He never had a friend he didn't kill, never had a lover who's not dust in the wind." "Go your way," Susanna says, "and leave us to ours." Rhea's green, cracked lips twist in a horrible sneer. "He's killed his own mother. What will he do to you, you stupid brown-skinned bitch?" "He didn't kill her," Jake said. "You killed her. Now go." Jake takes a step toward the ball, meaning to pick it up and dash it on the floor, and he cannot do that, he realizes, for the ball is real. It's the one thing in the vision that is. But before he can put his hands to it, it flashes a soundless, exploding pink light. Jake throws his hands up in front of his face to keep from being blinded, and then he is. Melting, I'm melting, what a world, oh what a world. Falling. He is being whirled down through the pink storm, out of Oz and back to Kansas. Out of Oz and back to Kansas. Out of Oz and back to... Chapter 5. The Path of the Beam. "Home," Eddie muttered. His voice sounded thick and punch-struck to his own ears. Back home, because there's no place like home. No, indeed. He tried to open his eyes and at first couldn't. It's as if they were glued shut. He put the heel of his hand to his forehead and pushed up, tightening the skin on his face. It worked. His eyes popped open. He saw neither the throne room of the Green Palace nor, and this was what he had really expected, the richly appointed but somehow claustrophobic bathroom in which he had just been. He was outside, lying in a small clearing of winter-white grass. Nearby was a little grove of trees, some still with their last brown leaves clinging to the branches, and one branch with an oddly white leaf. An albino leaf. There was a pretty trickle of running water farther into the grove. Standing abandoned in the high grass was Susanna's new and improved wheelchair. There was mud on the tires, Eddie saw, and a few late leaves, crispy and brown, caught in the spokes. A few swatches of grass, too. Overhead was a sky full of still white clouds, every bit as interesting as a laundry basket full of sheets. The sky was clear when we went inside the palace, he thought, and realized time had slipped again. How much, or how little, he wasn't sure. He wanted to know. Roland's world was like a transmission with its gear teeth all but stripped away. You never knew when time was going to pop into neutral or race you away into overdrive. Was this Roland's world, though? And if it was, how had they gotten back to it? How should I know? Eddie croaked, and got slowly to his feet, wincing as he did so. He didn't think he was hungover, but his legs were sore, and he felt as if he had just taken the world's heaviest Sunday afternoon nap. Roland and Susanna lay on the ground under the trees. The gunslinger was stirring, but Susanna lay on her back, arms spread extravagantly wide, snoring in an unladylike way that made Eddie grin. Jake was nearby, with Oi sleeping on his side by one of the kids' knees. As Eddie looked at them, Jake opened his eyes and sat up. His gaze was wide but blank. He was awake, but he had been so heavily asleep he didn't know it yet. "Gruz," Jake said, and yawned. "Yep," Eddie said, "that works for me." He turned in a slow circle and had gotten 3/4 of the way back to where he'd started when he saw the green palace on the horizon. From here, it looked very small, and its brilliance had been robbed by the sunless day. Eddie guessed it might be 30 miles away, leading toward them from the direction where the tracks of Susanna's wheelchair. He could hear the thinny, but faintly. He thought he could see it as well, a quick silver shimmer like bog water stretching across the flat open land, and finally drying up about 5 miles away. 5 miles west of here. Given the location of the Green Palace and the fact that they had been traveling east on I-70, that was the natural assumption, but who really knew, especially with no visible sun to use for orientation. "Where's the turnpike?" Jake asked. His voice sounded thick and gummy. Oi joined him, stretching first one rear leg, then the other. Eddie saw he had lost one of his booties at some point. Maybe it was canceled due to lack of interest. "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore," Jake said, and Eddie looked at him sharply, but didn't believe the kid was consciously riffing on the Wizard of Oz. Not the one where the Kansas City Royals play, not the one where their monarchs play either. "What gives you that idea?" Jake hoisted a thumb toward the sky, and when Eddie looked up, he saw that he had been wrong. It wasn't all still white overcast, boring as a basket of sheets. Directly above their heads, a band of clouds was moiling toward the horizon as steady as a conveyor belt. They were back on the path of the beam. "Eddie? Where are you at, sugar?" Eddie looked down from the lane of clouds in the sky and saw Susanna sitting up, rubbing the back of her neck. She looked unsure of where she was, perhaps even who she was. The red cappies she was wearing looked oddly dull in this light, but they were still the brightest things in Eddie's view, until he looked down at his own feet and saw the street boppers with their Cuban heels. Yet these also looked dull, and Eddie no longer thought it was just the day's cloudy light that made them seem so. He looked at Jake's shoes, Oi's remaining 3 slippers, Roland's cowboy boots. The gunslinger was sitting up now, arms crossed around his knees, looking blankly off into the distance. All the same ruby red, but a lifeless red somehow, as if some magic essential to them had been used up. Suddenly Eddie wanted them off his feet. He sat down beside Susanna, gave her a kiss, and said, "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty." Or afternoon, if it's that. Then quickly, almost hating to touch them, it was like touching dead skin somehow, Eddie yanked off the street boppers. As he did, he saw they were scuffed at the toes and muddy at the heels, no longer new-looking. He had wondered how they'd gotten here. Now, feeling the ache in the muscles of his legs and remembering the wheelchair tracks he knew, they had walked, by God. walked in their sleep. That, Susanna said, is the best idea you've had since, well, in a long time. She stripped off the cappies. Close by, Eddie saw Jake taking off Oi's booties. Were we there? Susanna asked him. Eddie, were we really there when I killed my mother? Roland said. Yes, you were there, as I was. God's help me, I was there. I did it. He covered his face with his hands and began to voice a series of harsh sobs. Susanna crawled across to them in that agile way that was almost a version of walking. She put an arm around him and used her other hand to take his hand away from his face. At first, Roland didn't want to let her do that, but she was persistent, and at last his hands, those killer's hands, came down, revealing the haunted eyes which swam with tears. Susanna urged his face down to her shoulder. Be easy, Roland, she said. Be easy and let it go. This part is over now. You passed it. A man doesn't get past such a thing, Roland said. No, I don't think so. Not ever. You didn't kill her, Eddie said. That's too easy. The gunslinger's face was still against Susanna's shoulder, but his words were clear enough. Some responsibilities can't be shirked. Some sins can't be shirked. Yes, Rhea was there, in a way at least, but I can't shift it all to the Coos, much as I might like to. It wasn't her either, Eddie said. That's not what I mean. Roland raised his head. What in hell's name are you talking about? Caw, Eddie said. Caw, like a wind. In their packs there was food none of them had put there. Cookies with Keebler elves on the package, saran-wrapped sandwiches that looked like the kind you could get, if you were desperate that was, from a turnpike vending machine, and a brand of cola neither Eddie, Susanna, nor Jake knew. It tasted like Coke and came in a red and white can, but the brand was Nazala. They ate a meal with their backs to the grove and their faces to the distant gleam of the Green Palace, and called it lunch. If we start to lose the light in an hour or so, we can make it supper by voice vote, Eddie thought, but he didn't believe they'd need to. His interior clock was running again now, and that mysterious but usually accurate device suggested that it was early afternoon. At one point he stood up and raised his soda, smiling into an invisible camera. When I'm traveling through the land of Oz in my new Takaro spirit, I drink Nazala, he proclaimed. It fills me up, but never fills me out. It makes me happy to be a man. It makes me know God. It gives me the outlook of an angel and the balls of a tiger. When I drink Nazala, I say, gosh, ain't I glad to be alive? I say, sit down, you bum-hug, Jake said, laughing. Ugh, Oi agreed. His snout was on Jake's ankle, and he was watching the boy's sandwich with great interest. Eddie started to sit, and then the strange albino leaf caught his eye again. That's no leaf, he thought, and walked over to it. No, not a leaf, but a scrap of paper. He turned it over and saw columns of blah blah and yak yak, and all the stuff's the same. Usually newspapers were blank on one side, but Eddie wasn't surprised to find that this one was. The Oz Daily Buzz had been a prop after all. Nor was the blank side blank. Printed on it in neat, careful letters was this message. Next time, I won't leave. Renounce the tower. This is your last warning, and have a great day. R.F. Below that, a little drawing. And pause. I will post a picture of the little drawing, the note and the little drawing, after I end this, okay? Eddie brought the note back to where the others were eating. Each of them looked at it. Roland held it last, ran his thumb over it thoughtfully, feeling the texture of the paper, then gave it back to Eddie. R.F., Eddie said. The man who was running TikTok. This is from him, isn't it? Yes. He must have brought the TikTok man out of Lud. Sure, Jake said darkly. That guy Flag looked like someone who'd know a first-class bum hug when he found one, but how did they get here before us? What could be faster than blame the mono, for cripe's sake? A door, Eddie said. Maybe they came through one of those special doors. Bingo, Susanna said. She held her hand out, palm up, and Eddie slapped it. In any case, what he suggested is not bad advice, Roland said. I urge you to consider it most seriously, and if you want to go back to your world, I will allow you to go. Roland, I can't believe you, Eddie said. This, after you dragged me and Suze over here kicking and screaming. You know what my brother would say about you? That you're as contrary as a hog on ice skates. I did what I did before I learned to know you as friends, Roland said. Before I learned to love you as I loved Elaine and Cuthbert, and before I was forced to revisit certain scenes. Doing that has... He paused, looking down at his feet. He had put his old boots back on again, and thinking hard, at last he looked up. There was a part of me that hadn't moved or spoken in a good many years. I thought it was dead. It isn't. I have learned to love again, and I'm aware that this is probably my last chance to love. I'm slow. Benet and Court knew that, so did my father, but I'm not stupid. Then don't act that way, Eddie said, or treat us as if we were. What you call the bottom line, Eddie, is this. I get my friends killed. And I'm not sure I can even risk doing that again. Jake especially. Never mind. I don't have the words. For the time since I turned around in the dark room and killed my mother, I may have found something more important than the tower. Leave it at that. All right. I guess I can respect that. So can I, Susanna said, but Eddie's right about Ka. She took the note and ran a finger over it thoughtfully. Roland, you can't talk about that. Ka, I mean, then turn around and take it back again, just because you get a little low on willpower and dedication. Willpower and dedication are good words, Roland remarked. There's a bad one, though, that means the same thing. That one is obsession. She shrugged it away with an impatient twitch of her shoulders. Sugar Pie, either this whole business is Ka or none of it is. And scary as Ka might be, the idea of fate with eagle eyes and a bloodhound's nose, I find the idea of no Ka even scarier. She tossed the RF note aside on the matted grass. Whatever you call it, you're just as dead if it runs you over. Whatever you call it, you're just as dead if it runs you over, Roland said. Reimer, Thorin, Jonas, my mother, Cuthbert, Susan, just ask them. Ask any of them, if you only could. You're missing the biggest part of this, Eddie said. You can't send us back. Don't you realize that, you big galoot? Even if there was a door, we wouldn't go through it. Am I wrong about that? He looked at Jake and Susanna, and they shook their heads. Even Oy shook his head. No, he wasn't wrong. We've changed, Eddie said. We. Now he was the one who didn't know how to go on, how to express his need to see the tower, and his other need, just as strong, to go on carrying the gun with the sandalwood insets. The big iron was how he'd come to think of it, like in that old Marty Robinson song about the man with the big iron on his hip. It's Ka, he said. It was all he could think of that was big enough to cover it. Kaka, Roland replied, after a moment's consideration. The three of them stared at him, mouths opened. Roland of Gilead had made a joke. There was one thing I don't understand about what we saw, Susanna said hesitantly. Why did your mother hide behind that drape when you came in, Roland? Did she mean to... She bit her lip, then brought it out. Did she mean to kill you? If she'd meant to kill me, she wouldn't have chosen a belt as her weapon. The very fact that she had made me a present, and that's what it was, it had my initials woven into it, suggests that she meant to ask my forgiveness, that she had a change of heart. Is that what you know, or only what you want to believe? Eddie thought. It was a question he would never ask. Roland had been tested enough, had won their way back to the path of the beam by reliving that terrible final visit to his mother's apartment, and that was enough. I think she hid because she was ashamed, the gunslinger said, or because she needed a moment to think of what to say to me, of how to explain. And the ball, Susanna asked him gently. Was it on the vanity table, where we saw it, and did she steal it from your father? Yes, to both, Roland said. Although, did she steal it? He seems to ask the question of himself. My father knew a great many things, but sometimes he kept what he knew to himself. Like him knowing that your mother and Martin were seeing each other, Susanna said. Yes. But Roland, you surely don't believe that your father would knowingly have allowed you to... Roland looked at her with large, haunted eyes. His tears had gone, but when he tried to smile at her question, he was unable. "Have knowingly allowed his son to kill his wife?" he asked. "No, I can't say that. Much as I'd like to, I can't. That he should have caused such a thing to have happened, to have deliberately set it in motion like a man playing castles, that I cannot believe. But would he allow Caw to run its course? Aye, most certainly." "What happened to the ball?" Jake asked. "I don't know. I fainted. When I awoke, my mother and I were still alone, one dead and one alive. No one had come to the sound of the shots. The walls of that place were thick stone, and that wing mostly empty as well. Her blood had dried. The belt she had made me was covered with it, and I took it and I put it on. I wore that blood-stained gift for many years, and how I lost it is a tale for another day. I'll tell it to you before we have done, for it bears on my quest for the tower. But although no one had come to investigate the gunshots, someone had come for another reason. While I lay fainted away on my mother's corpse, that someone came in and took the wizard's glass away." "Rhea?" Eddie asked. "I doubt she was so close in her body. But she had a way of making friends, that one. Aye, a way of making friends. I saw her again, you know." Roland explained no further, but a stony gleam arose in his eyes. Eddie had seen it before and knew it meant killing. Jake had retrieved the note from R.F. and now gestured at the little drawing beneath the message. "Do you know what this means?" "I have an idea it's the sigil of a place I saw when I first traveled in the wizard's glass, the land called Thunderclap." He looked around at them one by one. "I think it's there that we'll meet this man, this thing named Flag again." Roland looked back at the way he'd come, sleepwalking in their fine red shoes. "The Kansas we came through was his Kansas, and the plague that emptied out the land was his plague. At least, that's what I believe. But it might not stay there," Susanna said. "It could travel," Eddie said. "To our world," Jake said. Still looking back toward the Green Palace, Roland said, "To your world, or any other." "Who's the Crimson King?" Susanna asked abruptly. "Susanna, I know not." They were quiet then, watching Roland look toward the palace, where he had faced a false wizard and a true memory, and somehow opened the door back to his own world by doing so. Our world, Eddie thought, slipping an arm around Susanna. Our world now. If we go back to America, and perhaps we'll have to before this is over, we'll arrive as strangers in a strange land, no matter when it is. This is our world now. The world of the beams and the guardians and the dark tower. "We got some daylight left," he said to Roland, and put a hesitant hand on the gunslinger's shoulder. When Roland immediately covered it with his own hand, Eddie smiled. "You want to use it or what?" "Yes," Roland said. "Let's use it." He bent and shouldered his pack. "What about the shoes?" Susanna asked, looking doubtfully at the little red pile they had made. "Leave them here," Eddie said. "They served their purpose. Into your wheelchair, girl." He put his arms around her and helped her in. All God's children have shoes," Roland mused. "Isn't that what you said, Susanna?" "Well," she said, settling herself, "the correct dialect adds a supgun of flavor, but you've got the essence, honey. Yes." "Then we'll undoubtedly find more shoes, as God wills it," Roland said. Jake was looking into his knapsack, taking inventory of the foodstuff that had been added by some unknown hand. He held up a chicken leg in a baggie, looked at it, then looked at Eddie. "Who do you suppose packed this stuff?" Eddie raised his eyebrows as if to ask Jake how he could possibly be so stupid. "The Keebler elves," he said. "Who else?" "Come on, let's go." They clustered near the grove, 5 wanderers on the face of an empty land. Ahead of them, running across the plain, was a line in the grass which actually matched the lane of rushing clouds in the sky. This line was nothing so obvious as a path, but to the awakened eye, the way that everything bent in the same direction was as clear as a painted stripe. The path of the beam. Somewhere ahead, where his beam intersected all others, stood the dark tower. Eddie thought that, if the wind were right, he would almost be able to smell its sullen stone. And roses, the dusky scent of roses. He took Susanna's hand as she sat in her chair. Susanna took Roland's. Roland took Jake's, and Oy stood 2 paces before them, head up, scenting the autumn air that combed his fur with unseen fingers, his gold ring eyes wide. We are Catet, Eddie said. It crossed his mind to wonder at how much he'd changed, how he'd become a stranger even to himself. We are one from many. One from many, Jake said. Come on, let's go. Bird and bear and hare and fish, Eddie thought. With Oi in the lead, they once more set out for the dark tower, walking along the path of the beam. And there we go, guys. That is the end of Wizard and Glass. And I believe the next book is Wolves of the Kaya. Yep. I almost threw that candle. I had to check. I was debating if it was Wolves of the Kaya or Song of Susanna, but it is. Next book will be Wolves of the Kaya, and we will start that. All right, thanks everyone. Later days, pretty shiny peoples. Don't forget to smile bunches, laugh lots, and have great fun.